Hey everyone, it's Andy. Longtime listeners to the show will remember a series we did 3 years ago looking at Notre Dame's presence in and around Jerusalem. It was called Tantur, Hill in the Holy Land. Well, I'm excited to announce that a similar series will be coming in the new year. We're taking you on a journey to the Emerald Isle to tell the story of the university's presence and impact there. The series is called East and West, Notre Dame in Ireland. Be watching for it in the coming months. Thanks for listening, and Happy New Year. From the University of Notre Dame, I'm Andy Fuller, and welcome to Notre Dame Stories. Well, a new year is upon us, and if you're one of the many seeking a sense of renewal in 2023, listen up. Some advice from a certified wellness coach straight ahead. All right, here with Mara Trianfero-Lucas, Assistant Director of Assessment and Education at the McDonald Center for Student Wellbeing, more commonly referred to on campus as McWell. Mara, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So there will be some folks who hear this episode and aren't familiar with McWell and what you all do. So let's maybe start there. Describe the center and maybe your role specifically in it.
Great. Well, the McDonald Center for Student Wellbeing has been around since 2014, so relatively new for some of the alumni or older listeners in the crowd, but we are the Student Health Promotion Office. So our goal is to help students to develop skills, learn resources, understand strategies for becoming and staying well. So more on the prevention side of things. You'll see on our website, we don't talk about depression as much. We talk about handling stress, knowing the resources, things like that. We really think on the individual student level, but we also try to think about how can we create campus environments where making the healthy choice is the easier choice. We do that and by focusing on the 5 S's, so it makes it easy for the students to remember, but we focus on substance use risk reduction. We focus on stress management, sleep. We have restorative spaces here, and we help students think about how they can create their own restorative spaces. And then the last is social connection, which we actually added through and after COVID. My role as an assistant director here is primarily the substance use risk reduction, but we know that in many cases, alcohol is not the problem. It's usually one of those other S's that's leading to it. So I do the stress workshops, mindfulness, different peer engagement strategies to help the students to help each other, and a lot of things like that.
Yeah, I want to make sure I have the 5 S's because that's, I think, a really good framework for what we're going to talk about. So substance, stress, sleep, space, and then social. So those are the 5 S's we're talking about. Interesting. Okay. That's really helpful because, here this episode drops New Year's Eve, and we're talking about approaching 2023, the new year, with a sense of renewal. I wonder if we could just hit on a couple of areas where you might be able to share some strategies for anyone listening, really, student or former student, whoever it may be, to approach renewal in 2023. But mental health, of course, is a big one, and this time of year, people are probably like, I could really use a fresh start with just kind of my mindset in 2023. What are some strategies for someone who is looking to kind of refresh and renew that part of their being in the new year?
I think no matter what area they're trying to refresh and renew, it's important to connect to your values. So sitting down and thinking about what's important to me, why is this important to me, and what do I want this to look like? So I think sometimes we say, oh, I want to meditate more because it'll help my mental health. And it's like, okay, well, what are the values behind that? What about your mental health? What about that strategy? What are you hoping to achieve? And what do you think it will look like when it is successful? So I think that sometimes we dive into strategies without taking a step back and thinking about the why of what we're doing. So I want to improve my mental health because I want to be a better student and I think I could focus better. Or and school is important to me because X. Or I've been short with my family and I want to be more patient. So therefore, I want to practice, mindfulness so that X. Those kinds of things really help us to stay rooted in whatever practice or strategies we choose. If we don't have a why and if we don't have the values around it, then sometimes we're just doing something for the sake of doing it. We don't get that renewal that we're hoping for.
Yeah, you're almost treating the symptom and not the actual thing that's bothering you in that sense.
Right. And I think that when you talk about mental health, a lot of times we forget that physical health is part of that. So making sure that we're getting enough sleep. Obviously, again, when we talk to our students and we say, you should get, 7 to 9 hours, they kind of laugh at us. But that could be, integrating naps or integrating other forms of rest that can kind of help you to kind of get that restoration. So I think that many times we forget that our body is so closely tied with our mental health. If we're struggling with stress management, then sometimes, looking at how we're using substances can impact that. Thinking about exercise, we've heard that exercise can build endorphins and that can help. But it doesn't have to be an hour at the gym. It could be a walk with the dog, maybe an extra one a day, or it could be, a yoga video or something like that where we're using our body. And so thinking about that mental health side, making sure that we're taking care of our bodies and our physical health in the way that they need to be is really important as well.
These topics are all kind of interrelated, but I wonder if, a lot of people in the new year are probably thinking about work or school and life balance. So finding, the right symmetry between the stuff I have to do and the stuff I want to do and is enriching for me. The why there might be kind of easy to figure out, but maybe talk about how to find that why, and then what are some strategies there that if we want to renew kind of that work-life balance in 2023, how should we go about it?
Yeah, I think going back to that why and thinking about, okay, here are these work tasks, or here are these school tasks that I have to do. Here are these family responsibilities. So determining what are your non-negotiables. Oftentimes we feel like the shoulds kind of can guide us, and really taking a step back and saying, is that a priority, or is that just something I'm feeling pressure? Maybe I'm putting the pressure on myself. I think about cleaning our houses, right? Like, obviously we need to have some semblance of order, but sometimes we feel like we should check all the boxes that, mean a clean house, that kind of thing. Or as students, we should be in this club, even though maybe it's not our primary interest, but we feel like we should for whatever reason. So taking a step back, I think with the prioritizing of what is a need and what is a should, right? Like our families need groceries. That has to happen. We can't give up grocery shopping, but we don't need to make 4-course meals every night. And so thinking about that element of the why. I think that another part of that work-life balance is making sure that we're scheduling in life. I think that sometimes we just expect it to fill in the gaps, right? Like, I'll eat when I have time over lunch. Or I know our students oftentimes will grab something on the fly, but that's not just, the lifetime isn't just functional. It's also rest. It's also a chance for our brains to kind of shift mode. I've tried this year to not eat at my desk, right? Because I really need that break mentally to be more productive ultimately. And scheduling in that time intentionally, I think, can be really helpful. Another part of it is again, that mindset. Something that I think is really important is thinking about gratitude. And so how do we kind of shift that mindset in a way where we are not just focusing on what's going wrong and what's kind of on the to-do list, but, oh, okay, this is going well. Or I had time to have lunch with a friend today, or I had time for coffee today. And so making sure that we're not just paying attention at the end of the day, especially to what we didn't do or what didn't go right, but training ourselves to focus on the positive and focus on what did go well, what we did accomplish, what we are proud of, so that ultimately, again, we can be more productive. If we're feeling crappy about that balance, or we're feeling crappy about how we're spending our time, then that's this perpetuating cycle, right? And then we're not being as productive the next day. But if we can celebrate our successes and say, you know what, I did this, this, and this, and I didn't get to this, but I got to spend more time with my kids, or I got to spend more time FaceTiming a friend. We need to make sure that we're seeing that as productive too, because we need those things as part of that balance.
Well, we've mentioned a couple of things that maybe get into our next category here. We've talked about values. We talked about non-negotiables. Those are both words that I think of when I think of spiritual growth and relationships, I guess. For someone wanting to renew their spirit in 2023, advice there.
From a spiritual perspective, surrounding ourselves with people with whom we can have those conversations, if we're not someone that maybe is involved in religious practice, but thinking specifically about how you make meaning of the world, you have to have those conversations. And again, that social opportunity gives you part of that. We already talked about the prioritizing, but connecting with our values is a big part of that. I think for me, whatever practice we can integrate can help with that as well. Maybe you experience spirituality through church and through time in nature, but identifying for ourselves, and again, not making it a byproduct, but something with intentionality. I know at times in my own life when I'm feeling more connected to God or more connected spiritually, I look at what is working and then try to remember that for when I'm not feeling as connected.
Oh, yeah.
But kind of getting in a practice of saying like, in addition to religious practice, I know that I need time outside because that helps me. Even in the winter, there's value to that.
Right.
And making sure that, you're thinking about what does work and being intentional about integrating that.
What other areas of renewal might we take on in 2023, and how should we go about it?
I think just making sure that we're taking time for fun. And that may look very different for different people. Maybe fun for you is cozy away with a book. But again, all of the research tells us that we need that intellectual well-being, and that can be a hobby. I know that, there's been a lot of research that talks about the importance of hobbies as stress relievers. In many cases, they're also very social. You join a knitting club, you're learning something new, you're challenging your brain, but you're also socializing with people. And so making sure that we're thinking about what we enjoy and maybe exploring new things. We know that the novelty of new things can also provide that sense of renewal. That maybe you've done the same thing forever, and so finding new ways to approach that, and learning new skills, learning new strategies. Again, maybe it's just a new yoga class, or hey, I'm going to try puzzles this year. As a family, we're going to put out the card table and do that all together. But thinking, kind of in that holistic way of how we're intentionally having fun is really an important piece. I would also encourage all of the listeners to consider intentionality around their use of social media, their use of phones and devices, scheduling in downtime, putting it away at meals, so that you can get that social connection from those meals. But I think that I've seen a lot of literature and experienced it in my own life that we get too easily caught in that cycle and that trap, and that's certainly not helpful for our mental health. But I want to encourage people to recognize that we need those breaks, right? So maybe I set my timer for 10 minutes of puppy videos, because I enjoy that. It's fun. But when can we put our phones away? Maybe when we're, really frustrated, we're standing in line at the store, maybe we just put our phone down, take some deep breaths, look around, people watch, kind of, if we're with our family, have a conversation. But I think that a big piece of renewal is considering how we relate to our phones and our technology, especially with so much more online with Zoom and meetings and work and things like that. We're already using it too much. And so how can we cut back in our personal lives to integrate those hobbies, that actual social connection? I think that's an area that a lot of people, the new year is a good time to just take a step back and be like, wait, what role does my phone play and how am I using it in a way that's helpful? How am I using it in a way that's hurtful?
If you're looking for a specific resolution, yes, putting away the phone for a designated time each day may be as good as any, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, Mara, thank you very much for your advice on renewal, and Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, and Happy New Year to you as well, and to all the listeners. Good luck with all of the renewal and the new strategies.